apologize first to the folks that are on the live stream because one of the things that I want to talk about today, which is the sound system, we're having significant trouble with it, with the AV system, not for lack of trying. So we are live streaming this to 1340 right now, but there's most likely a delay. So I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. So for those that I don't know, which I think only a couple of maybe newer residents, I'm Michelle Ramolia, the CEO here at Woodland Pond, and I'm very glad that you've joined us. So we've all got things I'm sure to discuss today. So I'm actually going to have somebody else go ahead and I'll wrap up towards the end. Jason?
I'm Jason Irish, Director of Concierge and Communication Services. I have a few things that I'll talk about. I won't talk about the sound system if Michelle wants to talk about it, unless you want me to. All right, so I'll talk about that first then. So, as you can see in the ceiling, what we did, so this was probably like 12, 11, 10 months ago, something like that. We decided to upgrade the sound system in the pack, and Ann Gordon, who's staring right at me, she knows about it. So the mics in the ceiling, there's two red ones right there, there's two green ones right here. What's happening is when we stream in the room, those mics are picking up the sound faster than the sound is coming out of the speakers behind me, which works off of this mic here. We had that camera upgraded. The camera is great. The camera has all kinds of zooming capabilities. It's more high def than the last camera we had, so that's doing great. But the sound system in the room is fine, but through the stream is not fine. It has been a long process, as Michelle just described. Just today, and I haven't even told Michelle this, I reached out to another company for something else, but asked them if they could come in and maybe assess our system to see if they have any other ideas, because the company that we've worked with for a long time is continuously coming in, trying something different, but nothing is working. So we don't really know where to go from here. And it's not something that we suggested, it's something they suggested to us. I won't talk about it anymore, I'm just rambling, so we'll go on to the next topic.
Are there any questions about that?
Rita.
Have you paid them for the work?
We have, but this is a company that we have a long-standing relationship with. They've done, everything in that black box, everything in the classroom, everything that was here existing, that company has did for us. So it's not, they're located right in Modena. I don't have any concerns about that. And that's a question that Ann brought up to me before. I'll say it now. Ann asked if we've, explored the idea of getting a refund. And we're not at that point yet. And we wouldn't get a full refund because, again, we got the camera, which was the most expensive part of it. These microphones would be the only thing that we would ask for a refund for, and then we would look for something else. So I don't think we're at the point of any kind of refund. It would be just exploring another direction.
Okay.
But we have, yes, to answer your question directly, we have paid them.
Yes, and I agree with everything that Jason just said.
All right, next topic. I want to talk about new staff. This came up the other day, a different piece of this, but I have some new staff throughout the building in the health center and independent. The first staff member I'll talk about is Ryan Pomeroy, our RTA. A lot of you residents have seen him, have dealt with him.
What is an RTA?
He's our resident technology assistant. So he'll come to your apartment, he'll help with your computer, your television, your telephone, your iPad. Again, he has seen some of you, but he's great. Call the concierge desk, make an appointment if you need help with anything. He's doing a great job. A couple other staff members I have. So Rebecca, when you leave here today, Rebecca's at the concierge desk. Her mother works in the health center. She's going to be working at both concierge and reception. She's a nursing student at Mount St. Mary's. She's only here part-time, but she's very bright. She's very outgoing. She wants to meet all of you and go say hi after we leave here. Another staff member that just started, his name is Garrett Tannis. He is also concierge and reception. Some of you may have seen him before. Very smart, very bright, very outgoing. I think he's going to be great here. When you see him, say hi. And another part of that, so this is where I was going with this. Someone brought up the other day, and maybe it was an email or a phone call about how some concierge know more than others. That's just, I don't know the right way to say this, but you know, Lisa's been at concierge, Lisa's been at Woodland Pond for 12 years. She's, of course, is gonna know more than Garrett, who just started last week. So I guess I'm just asking for patience, and trust me, I know with my experience, everyone is understanding, everyone's patient, but just show a little bit more patience and understanding with some of the newer staff, with questions that, you know, don't come up all the time. Questions, comments? No. Another thing I wanted to talk about, with our trips, we have a list of trips that come out every month. Gretchen puts the trip list out with the committee for transportation, for outings, for independent living. As soon as those trips go out, you have a week to turn those trips in. As soon as you turn that sheet in with your name signed on it, assume that you are now responsible for all the tickets that were purchased with your name associated with. It's come up a few times recently over the last couple months that, you know, residents are asking, why am I getting charged for this trip? And we're purchasing these tickets as soon as you turn those sheets in. So we assume that you plan on attending, and if you cancel, you're still responsible unless someone else takes the ticket. Recently, we haven't had a big wait list for a lot of the trips, so I just wanted to make that known and everyone aware of that. This is the last thing I'll talk about, and I'll go on to someone else. So your purse pendant. I've talked in the past about going, testing it, trying it out, making sure it works, but it is not waterproof. Don't wear it in the shower, don't put it through the washing machine, don't, you know, put it through the dishwasher. Don't wear it in the pool. It's not waterproof by any means. Yeah, keep it dry, keep it safe. And that's it. Questions, comments?
Are people getting theirs wet?
It happens, but I just want to make everyone more cautious when they have it on, or if it's in their clothing, make sure you take it off, put it on a nightstand. You know, just make sure you know where it is, not to get wet.
Does everyone in this room know where at least one of your purrs are?
Yes.
Okay. Very important. Oh, Betsy's is around her neck. Perfect. Does anybody have anything else for Jason in any of his world? Questions? Comments? Oh, hold on. Dawn and then Wayne.
Yeah, yesterday, during the Sustainability Follies, I just want to say that I felt so supported by all the staff that were helping me. It was really amazing. I was very nervous, and every time I turned around, there was somebody there who said, "What do you need? How can I help you?" And it was really just wonderful to have that support, so thank you.
No, you're very welcome. Thank Gretchen, Connor.
Yes, we have an amazing staff here.
Agreed.
Wayne?
I've had some visitors recently, and one of the things they're most impressed by are the trips, the variety of trips, the efficiency. When I explain to them how I sign up, the next thing, you know, I'm getting driven there, and I don't even have to do what I did in the city, search for parking and not find my car and pay for parking and so on. It's a really very admirable feature. It works very well, and I'm not the only one who comments on that.
Thanks, Wayne. We do our best. Any other questions, concerns? Okay. Yes, Dave.
So I'm assuming it's your job to keep the YouTube Woodland Pond at New Paltz current, and it used to be that I would go on there, because I frequently do, and there would be all kinds of other things that aren't related to us. Did you clean that out recently? Because I went on the other night and none of that stuff seems to be there anymore, so I'm trying to give you a thumbs up on that, or 2 thumbs up on that.
I can't take credit for that.
Go ahead and take it.
No, maybe you searched different, maybe you went under videos.
I just go on the
Woodland Pond.
whatever pops up, and then hit Woodland Pond and New Paltz, and then there are some things that maybe say Woodland Pond in it, but they're not us. I don't know where they are. But there used to be a lot more. Now there's fewer, and I thought maybe you had been scrubbing that off or something.
I think maybe before, I don't know, I'm just speculating here, but maybe
Take the
before. No, I can't take credit. But we created that YouTube account during COVID, so it's been around for about 2 years now, and I assume that since it's been around that long now YouTube and the internet is starting to become more familiarized with our YouTube account, and it's getting rid of some of those older videos that used to be not associated with Woodland Pond, I'm guessing.
One thing I would just add on that is, I'm not sure if you're all aware of this, but there's a feature on YouTube that if you go onto our channel, you can hit subscribe, and then every time we post a new video, it'll automatically alert you that there's a new video there.
As long as you're logged in under your username for YouTube.
Right, and it's free to subscribe. And we're almost at 200 subscribers. I think we're 199. That means we're almost viral. Tom,
Thank you.
one of the 2 stars from the staff of the Sustainability Follies yesterday.
These.
Oh, I'm sorry, the star.
Rob had first billing on the,
Hi, I'm Tom Tango, Director of Plant Operations. Couple things. I know a few weeks ago I said that I was going to have a company come in and grind some trip hazard spots in the walkways around campus. They're still not here yet. Talked to them yesterday. They're having quite a few personnel issues, and we believe it's going to happen in the first 2 weeks of September. But they will be here. Couple other things. Winter's coming. If you have a car here, please make sure that we know your plate number. It's great if you have those little Woodland Pond stickers, but a lot of people get new cars and don't tell us. So if you make sure you have the little Woodland Pond stickers, and we know whose car it is. And start your car occasionally also, right? Don't wait until the snow is a foot deep. Go out and start it. If somebody, if you, for whatever reason, you can't get out and start your car, you're ill and you can't get there, you're not home, I don't mind doing it. You can put a work order in, and we'll come start your car. So if you can't get there for the month because you're out cruising or convalescing, put a work order in and we'll take care of that. I'd rather do that than have to deal with a dead car in the winter. Also, I mentioned last month that we're starting to come around and clean the HVAC vents, or the HVAC coils in units, and that's been going really well. We're getting a lot done, and my guys that are doing it reported to me that overall everybody has been very cooperative, very patient, because I know when we do it, for like 30 minutes, the compressor is running in your apartment, and it can get, annoying. But I know everybody's been really cooperative, and it's been great, and we're getting a lot of them done. We started on the lower floors and heading up, and that's, really helped a lot.
are you in south wing, middle wing, or north wing?
I should know that. I don't.
In the south.
I know they're jumping. I know they're jumping around a bit, but there is a list of what we're doing. I just don't have it, but we are zipping through it. Segueing on that into HVAC issues. Those of you that live in the south wing, it's probably no news that you don't have air conditioning in the hallways.
Oh, I never noticed. We don't live out there, we don't care.
I don't have a great answer as to when you will, but just today, we had an engineering firm come in and they take a look at it, and they're gonna give us some options on what we need to do to correct that situation. The heat works, so when it gets cold, we're okay. The air conditioning doesn't. But I know about it, and we're making progress.
We can be 20 degrees hotter.
That's all I have right now. Questions?
I'll start over here and make my way around. Annette?
You said that you were planning on bringing in a crane when you had enough things to use it on, because it's very expensive to move it in. But the gutters around the central roof, they still have the birds, they still have the weeds growing up, and the water drips down or runs down our windows and doors.
I just spoke to the guy actually this morning. I should have a quote from him in a couple days.
Great.
Yeah, not a
I hate
crane.
to ask
It's not a
you.
crane, it's a lift.
Okay, I hate to ask you how much it costs.
I don't want to tell you now because Michelle's in the room.
When all we're hearing on the news about water shortages,
Why can't we get those outside faucets that have been leaking, some of them for years, still are not shut off and are still leaking? There's 3 or 4 of them up here in the top 2 gardens that are leaking for a long, long time.
I will take a look. I don't know if I can answer right now.
But I will use this as an opportunity to remind residents that you oftentimes see things before we do, and we need you to put work orders in. We can't be everywhere. So if you see that, please don't assume that we know that it's there. Please just put in a work order. That's the best thing to do.
Excellent, correct, very much.
Rita?
Actually, I very loud voice. Tom, you talked about power washing the cottages. The porches in the back are full of wasp, why can't I think of the word the wasps live in? Nests, thank you. Wasp nests, spider webs, I mean, all kinds of things like that. Haven't been cleaned in the 8 years that I've been here.
Well, a couple things. It's a good idea, and we'll do it.
Okay,
But we did do it about 2 years ago. We power washed about 2 years ago.
well, maybe I wasn't here the day they did it, but I don't
But
recall.
we did 2 years ago. And just like Michelle said, if anybody has a particular, a wasp nest or a particular porch that needs done, just put a work order in, we'll do it. But it's a good point. We haven't done it in 2 years, and we should go through and do all the cottages right now,
Okay.
especially the backs. Yeah.
Thank you. I also want to say on a positive side, my air conditioning was, maintained, the
Right.
coils were clean. However, 3 days later, it went down. But I want to compliment Carl and Seth, who responded immediately and rewired the whole thing.
Yeah, your unit, like a lot of them out there, get eaten by the mice.
Well, we couldn't find any mice bodies around, but they fixed it in a very short time.
Yeah, your unit was okay, it was just needed completely rewired.
They
And
really-
Carl did a phenomenal job.
He did it, he was great.
Yeah.
I would just mention that I think we won't do the power washing right now though, because we are in water shortage. And the county is starting, I heard on the news today on Spectrum that the county is gonna be putting measures in to not do
All right, all right.
unnecessary use of water, so we'll put it on the list,
Right.
but I would rather not do that right
But what we
now.
could do though is Rhea will come and we can get rid of the wasp nest.
So, Tom, just a point of curiosity. A couple weeks ago, there was a power outage for a couple hours.
Right.
And, I think it was a Monday morning, and it happened to be the time I was, my wife and I were walking the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that in independent living, some apartments had some lights on. But I thought there was supposed to be no power to the apartments during that. It's just a curiosity thing. Maybe there's some wiring glitches or something.
I wasn't here, so I don't know.
The lights were on anyway.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what happened, but what could have happened, and I don't know this, is, and I'm asking everybody that was here for that, were there some outlets and some lights that were working and some that were not?
Yes.
All right, so then what happened was, we didn't lose all power, we just lost legs. Legs. Electricity has 3 legs coming in the building. There's 3 tubes that carry electricity in, and sometimes we can lose 1 or 2 legs. If we lose 1 leg, the generator won't go on. If we lose 2 legs, the generator will go on. So if the generator was running and some lights were working in apartments, that means we lost 2 legs. So when you have, if you look at your panel box and there's 2 rows of breakers, one is fed by 1 leg, one is fed by another leg. So if you lose 1 leg, whatever breakers are in that row isn't gonna work. The breakers on the other side will work. So you could have, you could have your TV not working, but you can go into the bedroom and your light will work. Because if you go back to the panel box, the TV is gonna be on the dead leg and the light won't be. So then if that's what happened, then what happened that day was you lost 2 legs. The generator did go on,
But the
So-
generator's not in apartments.
No, the generator doesn't provide power to apartments, but that one leg that didn't get down was still being fed.
That's my question.
Yeah, so that's why some outlets worked, some didn't.
Tom, following up on Michelle's remarks about water conservation,
Mm-hmm.
it takes about 90 seconds for the hot water to get hot, and it takes about 90 seconds for the cold water to get cold in the kitchen. I'm not talking about the shower, but that's been an ongoing issue. Is there any way that could be adjusted so that we save water instead of waiting for the right temperature?
No. In independent living, and I'm speaking specifically of independent living, it has to do with how the building is plumbed. If you got all the people on your floor to take a shower before you, then you get hot water right away.
I'll just knock on their door.
Right, then it'd be fine. But it's just the way that the plumbing is routed, and
It's
some
not-
apartments
It's
that
not
don't.
like this, that's the issue.
Right, right.
So Tom made a circle, which it should have been, but it's not a loop. They're
Right.
just dead ends. So in order to get water, you don't have it like a hotel where it's continually just hot.
Right,
So,
right.
somebody else had a question for Tom?
Hi, I just want to know where the crew is who's putting the screens back in.
An excellent question, and I would ask Rob, because that's his
Okay.
ground. And I would ask him very detailed questions about that.
Okay, I'll ask you.
All right. Thank you. Anything else?
Anything else for Tom? You,
All right.
go ahead, Betsy.
We got our screens today.
Oh, okay.
Me too.
Well, I'm in the center
Yeah,
wing.
that's because the maintenance people put them in.
Yeah, Rob, I'm in the center wing on the 5th floor. Yesterday, they were on the center wing 6th floor, and then I saw the men down the hall, and I asked about if they were coming to the rest of the place. They said they had to go down for more screens, but they never came back.
Okay.
So when can I expect?
We're in the process of, we started Monday, we started putting screens back in the facility. We started in South Wing on Monday. We branched out to Central Wing yesterday and today. So we're just kind of moving that way. There are about a couple thousand screens here. And this year we decided to wash them ourselves. We didn't have the window washing company wash them like we did in the past, because it's a great amount of money for them to do it. So we were washing them outside. We still have some screens that we still need to wash because there's so many. So we're working on that. We do have a few screens. There's a couple cottages, I think we have their screens to still wash yet, and a few others. So it's just a matter of getting everybody, back into. So hopefully by the end of the week, we kind of get to, 80 or 90% completed, but it's in the process.
Well, they already were in the center wing, and I don't know when they intend to come back.
What's your room number?
The 528.
All right, I'll check on that. They all have a checklist of where they've been, because we're in North Wing, Central Wing, and South Wing at the same time, and Tom's guys and some of my guys have just gone off in different directions with a thing of screens. And like I said, there's still more screens to wash, so I don't have all of North Wings to put back. I wanted to start in South Wing first, because they've had the screens out the longest, because we took them out first. So I do understand that we're only doing the screens about every 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Right, and they're working from the top floor, but it's usually whoever's home or whoever we have permission to do. I understand you are home, and Betsy's up here rubbing it in that she got her screens today. I understand. So I'm gonna go to Betsy's house and take her screens out, and I'll come see you.
Okay, hold on a second, Mr. Waltz.
But I just want to add on to that, Mr. Waltz. Hold on one second. But I do want to thank you all for the patience that it takes to get through this process with the window cleaners coming in, going through the apartments. It is a process. It does take some time. It takes the window washers a week and a half to get through this entire campus. There are a lot of windows in this facility and a lot of screens. So this is why we only do the screens about every 4 or 5 years. So we won't have to deal with the screen thing. So next year, when we do come around, if we do this again, We're just gonna leave your screens right on your porch, and then we'll come back and put them right in the following week when they're done with outside. So we don't do the screens every year, so don't think, that that's normally what happens, okay? You had a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, should we have anticipated being on screens for 2.5 weeks going into this?
It depends, it really depends. I didn't, we just kind of did it at the last minute. I had asked the contractor, do you want to watch the screens or do we want to do it? And then it was just a matter of time, staffing. We both have staffing issues, the window company and us. But yeah, it usually takes about 2.5 weeks. The cottage could be a little bit different but we still have to take the screens and wash them. If you didn't want to wash your screens, we could have just put them right back in. But the window company does not put the screens back in. We normally do that. That's not included in the price. But it does take some time, yes. Okay? If you don't want your windows washed like next year, if you don't want your windows washed and just leave your screens in, we'll move along. You're kind of a special case.
If I had been awake.
Yeah, well, next time, get up a little bit earlier next time. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm on the, the third floor on the north wing.
Okay.
And the screens have been sitting in the hallway now for many days.
Okay.
It's a little irritating because, I like to have my windows open and I really don't want to have the bugs coming in.
I understand.
Have you any idea when we're going to?
We should hopefully have all of these units done by the end of the week.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Another thing
go ahead.
One thing I did want to tap onto as well before I go any further with the windows, I did want to mention temperatures in the apartments. I know a couple times I've mentioned this before, but please, when the housekeepers come, I know it's a little cooler out now, so it shouldn't be as bad as it was a few weeks ago, but please mind the temperature in your apartments when the housekeeper comes. I'm only asking when the housekeeper shows up that you keep your apartment at a comfortable temperature as a working environment. When they leave, I don't care if you put the heat on, that's fine. But just when they're there, just try and prepare the apartment for when they're gonna be there. Go ahead, Rita.
I just wanted to say that the guys who put the screens back yesterday did a great job. On the positive side, they were efficient, they came in and out, and they did it in it seemed like 5 minutes, maybe it was 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
Thank you for that. And I appreciate, the patience it takes, like I said, there are thousands of screens here. Like even a cottage itself has I think 16 screens per cottage. So they add up really quick. To wash each one individually, it takes a lot of time, and that's where it just takes us time. And then we gotta come up with a system to put them all back.
I have a question that I should know the answer to. Do we rescreen in-house?
Yes.
How often?
As needed. And that's another question. A resident had called me and asked me, said, are the screens numbered? You will see a number occasionally, or maybe multiple numbers at this point on your screens. We had tried that in the past to number them, get them back to where they go. So you don't, right now, it was just too complicated, it took us too long to sort through, okay, where's 235's fifth screen? And it just became too tedious to do that. But yes, we will rescreen them. If you get screens back and it has a hole in it, put in a work order. All right, it's the same process.
And also want to say, and it doesn't have to only be this time of year. If you have a rip or a tear or a hole in your screen, anytime, put a work order in and we can do it. It doesn't have to just be now.
Okay, but yeah, we can fix that. Any other questions for me? No? Going once? Okay, thanks. Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Cameron. I feel like I had something to bring up about, annual cleanings. Do you want to address that? Well, you're not done with them, right?
Just when it comes to annual cleanings, we're never done with annual cleanings. It's kind of like since there's so many to do, we are in the process of starting them. We started them, I think, back in May. We started with the smaller apartments, and I think we're on Willows now that we're moving up, so we had a few this week that we had scheduled as well. So it's really just staffing and schedule them. And then we will schedule all the way to the cottages, which will be the largest, and the dogwoods inside. So we're scheduling them by size right now. So if you haven't heard from us, you will eventually. Just because of COVID, we got so far back that we're basically starting from scratch. So that's why I started with the smallest apartments and worked our way forward from there. Is there any questions on annual cleanings? No? Okay, good job.
Okay, and then in addition to annual cleanings, I've been carrying out the annual wellness visits, which I've slowly and surely been doing as I have time. So if you get a call from me, that's most likely what it will be about. Moving on from that, Angel is here Thursday through Sundays almost every week, unless she's on vacation. So you can see her as needed, call her as needed. She's here from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Thursday through Sunday. And then of course we have MJ still, who's here Monday through Friday. She asked me just to make an announcement about COVID testing. She's still testing as needed, as wanted for any resident and or family members who come on site. She asked that everyone just please be cautious about symptoms, any little minor ache or pain that you may be having, please contact her or Angel. The piano, you can see that the piano is not here right now. The piano got picked up yesterday by a gentleman who will be doing a restoration project that should last through the middle of October. With that being said, we do not have a definite date as to when the piano will be back, but in the meantime, you're more than welcome to use the keyboard that Gretchen has, and I will keep you all updated as to when the piano will be returning.
And I would just like to make a official public thank you to the anonymous donors, two multiple donors that anonymously donated the funds to restore the piano, because I understand it was close to $20,000.
Yeah.
So this was a full restoration. Some of you remember that when we purchased the Steinway, we did an initial immediate repair, a couple $1,000s, to kind of get us to where it was playable again. This was the original, fully recommended to get it back all the way up to sort of concert level play. So this restoration is going to do a significant amount of replacement to different parts of the piano. And this was funded by two residents, anonymously funded the restoration. So thank you to those residents for that.
How does the temperature in this room affect the piano?
I don't know how the temperature affects the piano. I know humidity is usually more of a concern for wooden and other types of instruments, but we can ask Mark that question.
Yeah, I might know.
If there's an ideal temperature that we should be trying to maintain. You know, it's hard with our system the way that it is, but we can ask the question. Does someone else have a question or comment?
At the time that the piano was purchased, there was a lot of questions as to the process that was followed, and it was my understanding that there was supposed to be a process put in place in terms of making sure that it was, whatever we were purchasing was in a kind of working condition at the time, and we didn't have to go back and then discover that it needed $30,000 more work. Has that process been put into place?
When we originally had purchased this piano, it was known that it would cost about $20,000 for this specific restoration project. Beyond that, it was also told to us that we could do a, for a lack of a better word, mediocre restoration project to bring it to a level of playing. So at the time, we chose to do that project, which costed much less than this $20,000 project. In the interim, people have obviously been playing it. We've been tuning it on a monthly basis by this technician. So then we had these two anonymous donors come to make the donation, and since is when we decided to do the full-on restoration project.
But as far as the process, Rhea, to your point, we really haven't, Sarah and Christy and I need to sit down and hammer it out. We've just had a million things going on, so I'll put it back on the to-do list. Thank you. It's not done yet. Deborah?
my understanding from Libby Ross, who has the Steinway, is that the Steinway is fine as long as you don't let the temperature fall below 55. So this room never goes below 55, so.
Thank you, it's good to know. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We have our AARP defensive driving course in here on Saturday. I know that many of you are signed up, and unfortunately we have a limit of 35. Of the 35 people, we've only received 13 checks. So it was $25. It was asked of residents to have the check brought to concierge beforehand. So if you have not brought in your check, please do so before Saturday. Next, we will talk about some fitness equipment. I know that a lot of people have come to Jason or myself or Grace or Gretchen talking about the fitness equipment. Please know that it is in the works. We are proactively working on it, trying to get something moving along and, you know, bring it to some higher standards that have been brought to our attention. So in the next few weeks, hopefully we'll see some changes in that room.
Just a question.
Oh, and Tom changing the ceiling too.
About the elliptical, that moves too much. I think that's dangerous.
Okay.
So that should be a priority.
Yes, that is definitely a priority. She was bringing up the
And
elliptical.
the treadmill wobbles.
Both.
Yeah. And the bicycle doesn't have a fixed seat.
Right.
Right, but the wobbling. Apart from that, I wonder if that is broken.
Okay, noted, thank you. And then the last thing, two last things. Dr. Joshua K was supposed to be here this Friday. Unfortunately, he came down with COVID and will be unable to be here on Friday. With that being said, we are still moving forward with having him come in September to begin seeing residents. So we are going to schedule a new date for him to do an informational session. I'm waiting to get confirmation as to when that will be, but we will let you know as soon as we can. So stay tuned for that. He's a physiatrist. So a physiatrist or a physical medicine and rehabilitation specialist. Either or. Correct. And then the last thing, I don't know if you want to address it or if you want me to, is just about the mental health task force. I just wanted to thank everybody who got in their survey results. We got in a decent amount, more than I expected. And moving from those results, we're looking to get some things into play to offer some services, including counseling and including informational and educational sessions moving forward. Any questions?
Hi everybody, I'm Bridget Blum, Director of Human Resources, and I just wanted to provide an update. The last meeting we had, I announced that we had recently had a job fair and we're going to be having open interview Wednesdays. That has been successful. There have been a good number of candidates who have come in for a walk-in interview, and some of them have even turned into hires. So I'm very happy and pleased with the turnout for that. You know, it's nice that people have spread the word. You know, we put the yard signs around. I still have some available in my office that folks are going to be putting out, hopefully, in the early part of September. Some of what have been placed, many of what have been placed, you know, they disappear very quickly. Unfortunately, it's, you know, mowing season. You know, there's probably a whole number of reasons that the signs can go missing, and, you know, we wanted to try it as an option. And, you know, I have had two people specifically tell me that they saw our sign. So, you know, to me, that's two more than we ever had before. So I want to stay optimistic with it. You know, it wasn't a raging success. It didn't drive in, you know, tons and tons of people wanting to know what this woodland pond was all about. But again, just having a couple of people mention that they saw the sign, the you know, the turnout that we've had with the Wednesday interviews, I'm certainly pleased with that. The other update that I want to give, I did share it in the Chanticleer a couple of weeks ago, but I just want to talk with you about it now. Many of you, most of you, have you know, walked by the main hall, which is a space right across from our office. The previous or former cart room, which was prior to that, an entrance into the kitchen, where we have what's called the Identigo equipment set up for live scan fingerprinting. And many people have stopped by and asked what it was all about, what was going on there. You'll hear beeping if you're passing by and we're doing someone's live scan. Just in short, to remind everybody what that service is, all of the non-licensed employees at Woodland Pond are subject to a criminal history record checking, which includes fingerprinting. The criminal history record checking is done through the Department of Criminal Justice Services and New York State Department of Health. It's actually a regulatory requirement, and we perform that service, again, for every single one of our non-licensed staff. That being said, licensed staff are subject to a different kind of background screening, so just to be clear, it's not that they don't have anything, it's just different. They don't have to go through the fingerprinting process. Regardless, it's a lot of employees that have to have fingerprinting, and for many, many years, I have scheduled the appointments for every single staff member to go for their fingerprinting and have it done at, most frequently, either the location in Kingston or the location in Poughkeepsie, because those are the most proximate to New Paltz. And oftentimes people will miss their appointment or forget or get there without their documentation, and it would require a rescheduling. There was just a bit of a lag, in getting that service done. So I finally threw my hands up and said I'm ready to reach out to Identigo, to IDEMIA is the company, and say what would it take to partner with you to be able to provide this service on site. And I don't think I ended the phone call before I already had the contract paperwork in my email, because they are desperate for partners and locations, because they have a huge demand to provide these services. It's not just for healthcare, it's for education, it's for, the sheriff's department, it's for so many different agencies that require fingerprinting of staff. My daughter, who's a college student, has to get fingerprinting done through Identigo for her next semester of college. So it's just, there's a high demand for so many different reasons for so many different people. And so they jumped at the opportunity for us to become a partner. They provide all of the equipment, they provide all of the supplies and all of the training. The one caveat is that in order to provide the service here, we have to provide it publicly. So we are open to the general public in the sense that they have to schedule an appointment in advance. They can't just walk in for services. They do have to do it through an appointment. And we have had a decent volume. I would say that we've had anywhere between 6 and 10 folks. We've been doing it, this is our week 3. 6 to 10 folks on average per day coming in. A lot from New Jersey, because there are just no appointments available. The gentleman I was talking to yesterday said the nearest appointment for him was about 5 weeks out. Or he could go to the Bronx and have to cross a bridge and fight with traffic and find parking and all that. He said it's easier to hop on the interstate and be there in an hour and a half. So there's just such a demand for these services, and so I'm very happy to partner with IDEMIA on this. And then the other thing that's always a bonus is everybody that has come has said, oh my goodness, it's so beautiful here. And I use the opportunity, where other fingerprint places, they're probably trying to upsell their product. I am using every opportunity to say, do you know anyone who works in healthcare? Do you know anyone who needs a job? So I am constantly using those 10 minutes to, try to recruit and to let people know that this is a beautiful place to have to come to work every day. So, any questions?
Okay, so that last week when I drove to the Identigo in Poughkeepsie to be fingerprinted for the TSA, if I had known about it, I could have done it here, right?
So how did you schedule your appointment though? Did you have to go online and search for a location?
Yes.
Okay. So we provide limited services in the sense that we are not a TSA agent or site. So if you Google searched locations, Woodland Pond did not come up because we don't provide that service. So it's depending on the reason. I electively scaled down the reasons. You know, I really wanted to keep it related to employment because that served us best. And I don't have a staff member dedicated. I mean, if this takes off and, you know, we can expand services and maybe look to, you know, but we're just not there. I mean, we're certainly not gonna invest salary into someone to be available to do the fingerprinting. Right now it's handled by myself and Joanne Coltman and Joanne Dorsent. We share the responsibilities of, you know, taking turns or however we divvy it up to get the appointments done. But yes, they do a whole range of services.
If a resident was traveling and needed a TSA fingerprinting, could they come here just because they know it's here?
We don't have the capability to provide that service. Yeah, we're limited to only pre-employment checks and like Department of Justice checks.
Okay, thanks, Bridget.
Okay, thank you all.
You can give it to somebody in case they have questions. Okay, so we talked about the audiovisual. Cameron, when is the free store?
Oh, I have it on my list.
You wanna come back up?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The free store is next Wednesday to Friday, which is the 24th to the 26th. So far, we've gotten an abundance of furniture and materials and items and such from residents, which we are very, very grateful for. We have been keeping things downstairs in Jason's closets, in Rob's closets, in Tom's closets, in people's offices. We have a lot of things right now. But we would take as much as people are willing to give, and it is a great opportunity to clear out your apartment if you're looking to do so, or your cottage. So with that being said, we are still taking items until Wednesday the 24th when it will start. It'll be held in the art studio for employees. So if you have anything that is of larger scale, you can contact myself or Rob or Jason or concierge and let them know that you are looking to have something brought down, and we can do so immediately. And anything that's of a smaller scale, again, you can bring it to concierge or you can bring it to myself, whatever is easiest. So that is until Wednesday the 24th.
And what about smaller items?
Smaller items you can just bring right down to concierge, or
on the
if
24th, you mean,
before the 24th, so you have until the 24th to do so. Or if you want somebody to come get it, we can arrange that as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Does anybody have any question about what the free store is or how that works? Okay. We talked about Dr. K. So the only other thing that I just wanted to talk about was that while I was on vacation, you received a memo from me in your email regarding some questions that had been raised at men's coffee and resident council meetings related to the financial structure of Woodland Pond. Thank you for all of you that responded and said that you got some comfort from my memo. I had offered to answer any additional questions that folks had at that point. Very few additional questions came in the intervening week, but there was one question about the bonds. So Woodland Pond is, and I want to offer this to you and then you can certainly ask questions. Woodland Pond, when constructed, was 100% debt financed, meaning that all of the money to build Woodland Pond was borrowed by Kingston Hospital, $117 million. And those bonds were all purchased and we were financed by what are called institutional bondholders. So these are basically mutual funds or big, you know, the Vanguard Group, Alliance Bernstein, Columbia Investments. These are massive institutional bond buyers that say basically in exchange for us loaning you the $117 million, you know, we're gonna get paid interest on it for 30 years, just like a mortgage. And that's how Woodland Pond is going to be constructed, and that's how our debt was designed. In senior living, which is what we are in, and in not-for-profit senior living, which is what we are, the vast majority of the communities are built 100% debt financed. So our community was built using the same financial means as others. Out of 100% of the debt financed communities across the country, roughly 80% of the organizations, like Woodland Pond, are what is considered to be not rated. Now this gets very technical, and I'm gonna try not to make it too confusing, but think of it like a credit score, okay? So Woodland Pond is an entity that essentially could choose to become rated, okay? That is a choice that you make. You choose to seek a rating. And some of you may have heard of Fitch or Standard & Poor's. Those are rating agencies. So if Woodland Pond decided we want to be rated, we would put in an application and they would essentially review us as a credit. It's sort of like a credit application. And then they score you, okay? They don't use numbers like a credit score, but they use letters. So you might have heard of BBB- rated or something like that. That might be something you're familiar with. Woodland Pond has never chosen to be rated. The process to become rated is expensive and rather onerous, and typically you choose to become rated if you want to continually borrow. So essentially, if you're thinking of doing one borrowing and then basically just repaying on that debt, and you're not interested in continually borrowing new debt, it really doesn't matter if you're rated or not, except that a rating or not being rated does impact your available interest rates. So it's very similar to credit. Just as if you have good credit, you may be able to access preferable borrowing rates. So if you go to purchase a car, you might get a lower interest rate if you have better credit. So I want to just reiterate, out of all of the senior living communities across the country that are debt financed, which most are, 80% have chosen not to be rated, and that Woodland Pond is in the same boat. We also, when we were constructed, the financial modeling that was in place at the time was such that we were assigned at the time of the borrowing very high interest rates. Okay, we had 5 different types of rates, and again, I don't want to get into the details because it's confusing. But in 2007, when we borrowed, we had 5, they call them tranches of debt. Some of them were adjustable, some of them were variable and changed every day. Some of them changed annually, some of them were fixed, but very little of that debt was fixed, but the rate was high. And that was based on the fact that Woodland Pond had no previous experience in senior living, and Kingston Hospital was not securing the debt. So we had no guarantor, in other words, no cosigner. We had no established credit, and the market was very tight at the time. So our rates were very high, and what they call that in the market is high yield debt. Some people call it junk bonds, but they're not junk bonds. They're only junk bonds if you don't pay on them. Since 2007, because we've never missed an interest payment, we've never missed a principal payment, and we're financially stable with waiting lists, looking at expansion, we have been able to successfully refinance our debt for preferable interest rates twice. We did it once in 2014, we did it again in 2017. So we've been able to reduce those interest rates twice over the last 10 years, and ultimately significantly reduce the burden on ourselves financially from an interest perspective, because we've had now 13 years to establish our financial record. Strategically, our board is actually actively discussing at this time seeking a rating, whereas we've chosen for the last 13 years not to become rated, because we are in the strongest financial position that we've been in, because we're looking at possible expansion opportunities, because we know we have to renovate the campus, we may need to borrow. And the market may improve such that we could get even lower rates. If we are able to establish a rating, we will be able to then access lower interest rates because we will have an established sort of credit profile. So strategically, we are now discussing potentially becoming rated. So there's always a lot of things in the works, but that was the one follow-up question, was to just explain a little bit more about our financial, how the community was financed, and where we are. We roughly have maybe $70 million of existing debt. So in 13 years, we've paid down from 117 to into the 70s. So we're right on track with where we initially thought we would be. We've never missed an interest or principal payment. This was just the way the model worked, and it's very common not-for-profit senior living. So I'd like to stop there and take any comments or questions on that. Deborah?
Speaking of expansion, how are the 3 cottages coming along?
Sure thing. I'll just hold that and just see if there's any other questions on the bonds. Okay. Go ahead, George.
Sorry, I wasn't clear as to why you are thinking of getting rated. If it's like onerous and expensive thing, what's the value for us?
So it's a cost-benefit analysis. So depending on where we think we could get rated, and there's an algorithm that goes into it. If we could get rated sufficiently that we could access low enough interest rates to offset the cost, when we're talking about $4 million in interest that we pay a year, if we could bring them down substantially enough, it may make sense. So we're looking at the finances on it. And we don't do this on our own. We have a firm that we use that handles all of the banking, the underwriting. It's called Ziegler, and they just do senior living finance across the country. And then, as you saw in my memo, one of our newer board members who joined in November of 2019 is a retired bondholder, so for senior living. So he was our investor. And incidentally, these bonds can be traded, just like in the stock market. And so one of the ways that you can tell what kind of faith the market has in your product is how often are your bonds being traded. We have not had a sale of our bonds since 2019. So all of the investors are very comfortable. No one has put any of our bonds up for sale. Their fair market value is at or above par, and they're not being traded. So that should also give you some reassurance. Now, as to the cottages. So while I was away, I took a planning board meeting 2 Tuesdays ago, and after a lot of rigmarole, ultimately 2 of the duplexes got approved. The 3rd duplex, which is the one closest to Hvac and Ginny's cottage, the planning board is still reviewing that because there's a potential wetland intrusion, or what they're calling a wetland intrusion. It's not technically one because there's no federal wetland buffer there. It's technical, but for the purposes of this meeting, we had to get our attorneys involved. So our attorneys are working with the planning board's attorneys on that 3rd duplex to see what the engineers need to do in order for the planning board to consider it for approval. On the 2 duplexes that were approved, the point of contention and the reason that the meeting got sticky was because in 2018, the mayor of New Paltz put forth a statute which was ultimately approved by the village board that basically says that anyone that builds any residential unit in New Paltz, in the village, has to pay $4,500 per unit to create recreational space in New Paltz for the use of those residents. So basically, you're moving into New Paltz. If you're constructing new housing, you have to pay $4,500 per unit so that there can be adequate recreation space created for those new residents. So our argument was twofold. Number one, typically our residents are not utilizing village rec space. Most of you are not going to the playgrounds and going to other parks in the village. The pool, but I mean, not that common. It's just not that common that you're going and utilizing the village recreational space. It's just a fact. The second fact is we have 60 of our own acres in a conservation easement with an ample trail system, and we're attached to Milford Preserve. So we have our own adequate recreation space that's perpetually in a conservation easement. So $4,500 per unit means that for those 6 that we're looking at constructing, you're looking at in excess of $25,000, which is sort of a foolish expenditure for the purposes for which we know it will not be used. So we're trying to get the point across to the planning board. It got kind of contentious. It was not helpful that I was on Zoom because it was glitchy and we were talking over each other. But at the end of the day, we agreed to the fee. It's now in the hands actually of the village board because the planning board makes the recommendation to the village board that we pay the fee, and ultimately the village board has to send us the bill. So our attorney is trying to work it out with the village board, but regardless, we got the approvals on those. Tom is working on the building permit application. We have just today, we got the designs from the architect, they're about 90% completed. We're still waiting on the mechanicals. We have the site plans are basically done, good enough that a contractor can start. We are waiting right now, as you can imagine, there have been enormous pressures on construction staff to work for the site crew. So ultimately, we have a couple of options in terms of how we're going to get this thing done. But we are anticipating that we will encounter delays because of staffing. Like contractors they're having trouble getting work done. They're having trouble getting supplies. And one of these cottages has a substantial retaining wall, and we're not sure how we're going to source the material for the retaining wall right now because there's issues with supply chain. And this isn't any kind of fancy or particular retaining wall. This is it's not even one that will be visible. So it can just be it doesn't have to be pretty, and it's not necessarily, and we're not even able to source that, let alone something that's like custom and pretty and so forth. So what we're doing with the prospective residents that have deposited on the cottages is if at any time the contractors have said, the move-in date is pushed, we've been notifying them quarter by quarter if it looks like they're not going to get in. So initially we're hoping that they were going to be in by Christmas. That's not going to happen. Right now, they're thinking the end of March for those 2 duplexes, but that is all contingent on a lot of things. So for those that have asked, these cottages will look very similar to the existing cottages. We use the existing floor plan with only some slight modifications so that they would aesthetically blend in. Obviously, the finishes are going to be a little bit different because these were constructed like 15 years ago. They are all very close to complying with, if not fully complying with, what's called the New York State Stretch Code. Fully compliant with the New York State Stretch Code, which is a not adopted, but a proposed green code in New York. So basically, it implements a number of features for sustainability. We intentionally asked them to incorporate the stretch code in the design, so they will be more energy efficient. They have no fossil fuels. They're 100% electric. So we're moving forward on the cottages, Deborah. Rhea?
There was an article online about that meeting that you just referred to. And in that article, they talked about a possible trade instead of paying the activity fee, trading land.
So you can, under the village statute, you can contribute land to the village and basically deed it over to them in lieu of a fee. We would never put that on the table, but I did at one point say to them, our conservation easement is silent as to whether or not the public can access the conservation land. We would be willing to put that on the table. 1 million people would not come. It would not be a big issue. Hardly anybody uses the Millbrook Preserve. It's not like all of a sudden we've had 1,000 people there. You made a face. You think more than a little?
The trail's too extra for Millbrook Preserve. I see people in there all the time.
Well, they're in there, but it's not a gajillion people. It's not crowded. So I wasn't concerned. Tom wasn't concerned if we said we'll open it to the public. We were ready to put that, and I vocalized I'm willing to negotiate that because I think we've got a beautiful property, and I think for the most part, people would be respectful of the land. But in order to consider that, their attorney was basically saying it's just going to delay the process, and we can't delay it anymore. This should have been a 4-month process beginning to end, and we're in month 8 right now. So, Halima?
Michelle, moving away from the cottages back to independent living apartments, can you give an indication of how the response was to those people asking them to downsize from larger apartments to smaller apartments? Can you quantify that?
Yeah, so we have 3 right now that we're actively in discussion with. 2, I think, are confirmed that they're definitely taking a smaller unit, and 1 is, still deciding. That number could have grown, Halima, since I've been on vacation, but Christy's on vacation this week and so is Shannon, and they're kind of stewarding that. But my understanding is we have at least 2 confirmed moves 100%, and others that were interested potentially. So I was actually surprised, because normally when we put these kinds of things out, nobody goes anywhere. But it's a nice opportunity for somebody that is okay with having a smaller space, knows that they're gonna get a refreshed space and a new start, and a substantial financial savings annually. So that offer still stands if there's anybody else that might be interested.
So,
go ahead, Dave.
as you know, I do tend to watch those planning board meetings, but I missed the one that you're referencing. But I did this morning begin watching what was recorded last night on the Village's YouTube channel. At the beginning of the meeting, the chairman announced a new policy starting next month that there'll be no remote actors, if you will. Both presenters and board members must be present in the room.
Yeah.
So the way you said it sounded like both those things were a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think my part alone from the agenda was 1 hour and 20 minutes, and I was taking it from a campground. Now, the campground had good Wi-Fi, but I think there were times that I was talking and it was glitching on their end, and then it would seem like I was interrupting, and that was never my intention. But they allowed the Zoom, and of all the meetings we've had, every single meeting has had either a board member or a participant on Zoom. So I'm glad that they're gonna make them be in person. Okay, great.
Yeah, hi, Michelle, how many cottages, new ones, have actually been approved?
4 cottages in 2 duplexes.
Okay.
So 2 buildings with 2 cottages each. So 4 altogether. Betsy?
When's the next village board meeting, the planning board meeting, what does it want to be at?
We don't know that yet.
Yeah.
So right now, they're every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. We are not on the agenda right now, again, pending finding out what the planning board wants to have happen with this 3rd duplex. What we believe needs to happen, and we're leaving it in the hands of the engineers right now, is we believe that our engineer and architect need to meet with the village engineer to talk about enhanced wetland mitigation design features with that cottage or with the landscaping. We believe that we can, with that, get the approval, but we don't know the timing. So this is why we felt, as a board and as a management team, that it was time to expend the resources on the attorney, because this has just been dragging on for a very long time. We've got residents that are gonna be selling their homes and need to move in, because all 6 of those units are accounted for at this point. So they're all calling us, they wanna move in. So this is having, a true impact on the community at this point, so. Paul?
Will you start building the 2 without the approval of the 3rd?
The question was, will we start building the 2 without the approval of the 3rd? And the answer is yes. Yeah. So what we're hoping is, and I don't know the answer to this or not, but what we're hoping is that we can get the site contractors here on site doing their work on the other 2 duplexes, and that before they depart, we get the approval on the 3rd, because if we don't, then we have to pay them to mobilize again. And as soon as they go, their resources are gonna be zapped again. So this is, again, why we really feel that we need the attorney to be working on our behalf to try to get these approvals. So, okay. Anybody have anything else for me today?
Very good explanation of the finances.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.